Thank you. Such a nice introduction. You guys are troopers, by the way. The final day of presentations, first session of the day. I'm very impressed. Everyone made it. So this first image is actually just a tradition that 2600 Hertz has had with FreeSwitch. So we always do a movie poster every year, just to kind of have some fun with the FreeSwitch team. So this was our invention creation this year, just to laugh it up a little bit. But let's get going. How is everyone doing this morning? Lots of excitement. Right. It's the first session. That's okay. So today, like you said, we're going to walk through essentially us taking an open source instance beyond normal functionality, and how integrating powerful systems together can ensure you're always kind of ahead of the game and up to date with different technologies. So as we walk through today, I'll kind of introduce myself already, although I feel like you did such a great job, I don't really have to. Kind of who is 2600 Hertz, what is Kazoo, the breakdown of our components so you can understand kind of what we've done with the open core platform and take instances for yourselves and kind of see what opportunities are in the future. How the industry changes are actually affecting the different technologies and crossing different areas of the industry. Open core, we'll kind of dive a little bit more into that, and then we'll talk a little bit about our offering, one of our services called 2600 Hertz Mobile. And you guys might actually get to see a cool little demo at the end, brought to you by one of our partners. All right, so I'm going to actually briefly go through this because he actually said everything that I was going to. I've been in tech for about 13 years. I'm kind of newer in the telecom industry, but being in this industry has actually sparked my curiosity for technology even more, so I've started kind of jumping into coding a little bit more. I will say the dangerous demos yesterday was absolutely incredible. That was the first time I actually had the opportunity to watch that, so the brilliance of what people could do in just a matter of minutes was just phenomenal. So hopefully the next time we'll get involved. So question, does anyone here use Kazoo, or is anyone familiar with Kazoo or 2600 Hertz? Cool, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so a couple, awesome, okay. So for those of you that are new to the story, essentially 2600 Hertz was founded by Darren Schreiber and Patrick Sullivan, who's sitting right here. We're based out of San Francisco. Essentially in early 2009, Darren and Patrick saw a discrepancy in the telecom industry. Large-scale carriers essentially couldn't handle the volumes and didn't offer the flexibility that everyone was looking for. Sometimes could be a little bit expensive to get started. On the other hand, a lot of the open source components were designed for single servers, and operational costs could get too high sometimes. So there was kind of a middle ground that they felt was being missed. Sorry, my slide is freezing. Essentially a little bit about Darren. So his core focus has always been on distributed computing and communications technologies. So for years, he always believed there was a major opportunity to build something more in this environment. Patrick came from a little bit different of a background. He came from computer science, but was a very successful businessman, but always wanted to do something great and really saw an opportunity within communications. So essentially, they met at a bar, and they realized that there was an opportunity to do something more. And the idea of creating an open source distributed system, unlike anything else, was something that they started moving forward with. They brought in a gentleman by the name of Carl Anderson, and the three of them kicked off what is now known as Kazoo. So for those of you that know Darren and Carl, they have come every single year. And you're probably wondering why they didn't make it this year. Well, they have a lot of very important business initiatives at home that they had to take care of. So just wanted to call them out and say that they would love to have been here, but just unfortunately missed it a little bit this year. All right, so let's talk about Kazoo and the foundation and why it's so great, or what people tell us anyways. It's a distributed and scalable open source class 4, class 5 switch that can be used as a CPaaS or UCaaS functionality. Everything in the back end is an API, so you can essentially build a very customized experience for your target audience. We've utilized the top-of-the-line components, such as FreeSwitch, Camilio, Big Couch, RabbitMQ, and a ton of Erlang code to pretty much make this happen. So I'm going to break down the components just very briefly so you can understand kind of why they're so powerful and what brought it together. So essentially, our SIP engine is Camilio. They're one of our favorites. They handle our SBC and load balancing activity. We do utilize them for some functionality, some additional components like BLF presence, updates, and a little bit of SIP trunking. For our media servers, obviously FreeSwitch, we love them. That's why we're all here. They're a very important piece of our puzzle. Obviously, as our media servers are tackling all our audio and video features within all the functions in our platform. As our customer base continues to grow, so does our relationship with FreeSwitch. Essentially, the key and the brains of these components is going to be Kazoo. This is essentially deciding what is done, when it's done, and is talking between Camilio and FreeSwitch and Kazoo, and just kind of seeing what's going on. We have the backend bits of the telco components, number provisioning, tools to help with porting, white labeling. As far as if you want to take it to the next level, we've created a UI interface, which we call Monster UI. This essentially takes all the APIs that Kazoo exposes and uses them to build intelligent apps. This is kind of gearing more towards folks that are not as technical, doing things like smart PBX, branding, and a lot of business reporting. So our messaging bus is Rabbit MQ. This is like a big mailroom, right, in our office building, handling all the messages coming from publishers and routing them to the appropriate consumers. Except in this case, the mailroom has a special ability to let consumers that are interested in the same messages receive copy of these. So essentially, it lets us decouple the event-producing side from the event-consuming side. And then we have Big Couch. So that's going to be our JSON document storage. This is our database. This allows us to make secondary indexes of the data. So every document is replicated, which means if a server blows up, heaven forbid it does, there's still a copy that's retained of the document. So when the server gets restored, it'll receive copies of all the documents it's supposed to track. We call this a multi-master database, and it essentially ensures our platform never gets affected by a single point of failure. And it ensures that a server can accept a read or write component that'll essentially change across the replicated cluster of servers. So how do we fit in the industry with this? I know there's so many different components of open source to CPaaS, UCaaS. It's broken down depending on user and how people really want to utilize the technologies out there. So essentially, you guys are telecom enthusiasts. You dive into the details, you love what you do. I'm pretty sure you're aware of the constant shifts that happen within the telecom industry. We've already started seeing mergers and acquisitions that are trying to dive into expanding their technologies to tailor to customer demands, but also keeping up with the dynamic market changes. So like Twilio, ShoreTel, Avaya, these are some bigger ones and kind of cross the different areas. But they're all focused on building and analyzing how both CPaaS and UCaaS work in a cohesive environment. People are looking for platforms for different reasons. Maybe they just want SBC functionality, maybe they want class 4 functionality, maybe they want class 5 functionality. But essentially, they want an end-to-end solution to take care of the needs that they have. So the marketing, if you notice, is starting to focus on innovators and integrators. So we're not just talking about purchasing of a company that's creating a feature. We're talking about the ability to truly integrate platforms and advanced features of your choosing without having to pay for their companies or work with clunked together technologies. Mobility is huge. Everyone wants to stay connected, be connected to their business, to their phone. So however you can make that a seamless opportunity, that's what people are wanting. Obviously, communications are continuing to evolve and expand. So you want to stay connected, and that's important. Collaborative programs like messaging, Slack, give you the flexibility and fluidity to always stay connected and make sure that your business is always running. A wise person once said, your product today will be someone else's feature tomorrow. And while we actually couldn't agree more with that, we like to believe that Kazoo, thanks to our community and all of our open source contributors, is on the forefront of this. And we've been actually taking this approach for a long time. So we essentially have built this around open source and customer needs to have a lot of the CPaaS functionality, webhooks, WebSockets, Pivot, and then taking on the less technical side for the folks that don't quite get it. They want the telco in a box experience. So now giving them the Monster UI would actually give them the functionality they're looking for without having to code or dive into the technical details or pay someone to do so. All right, so we talked about kind of the different things we do. We wouldn't be where we are without open source and without open core. We've had a long-standing relationship with FreeSwitch and Camilio and other companies like that. Between Darren's passion of over 20 years in this industry, that was a very essential piece for helping us understand the different technologies and how we can really help people be successful, no matter how they're approaching the industry or what their business needs. So we essentially took the open core vision, created the basics so anyone could get started. No cost, no fees, because it was free for you to use and play around with. Then we added the apps for provided and enhanced functionality. On top of that, we didn't want people to feel like they were stuck with our system, because a lot of people like the versatility to use the technologies that they like and that work for them. And it's going to differ from where they live, to what they do, to what their business demands are. So we also created services that can actually be utilized with different technologies. One of those services that we were really proud of, and actually if you attended the Dangerous demo yesterday, you would have noticed Patrick Sullivan was using mobile operator console and call center, if I believe. So I'm going to dive in a little bit more on mobile, just because it's a pretty cool thing. I think we've talked about it in previous events maybe, but it's really starting to take off. So I'm going to bring up a partner of mine as well, but essentially tell you a little bit about it and how it works. We essentially partnered with Sprint and T-Mobile to do a SIP handoff via a customized gateway that we built called Tower of Power. The call comes in from the cell phone and is sent to the Sprint tower as normal. Then it's sent to their central office, where it does a SIP handoff to the Tower of Power, which can then hand off to Gazoo or FreeSwitch or an instant that actually matches the system. So this essentially benefits you. One, the integration is incredible. And this is not an over-the-top app. You're using a native dialer, and it can integrate with features on the platform, such as call recording, CRM integration, and you can move your calls from device seamlessly and quickly. So, and the best part is, we did create it so you didn't need Kazoo. We didn't want to make it so you were stuck with our platform. We wanted to give you the freedom and the flexibility to create your technology the way you wanted and stay connected. So, I'm going to have Mark take over and talk through how we are going to use FreeSwitch in this instance to show you how easy it is to actually integrate mobile through the server. Mark.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. Hey, I see a lot of, like Miriam said, a lot of people showed up early. I like that. That's awesome. So, like Miriam said, I'm a partner of 2600 Hertz. I'm a rabid fan of the Kazoo platform. Needless to say, I'm a rabid fan of FreeSwitch as well. I've been in the FreeSwitch community for quite a long time. A lot of people I know here, a lot of new faces as well. One of the things about being in the telecom space, I don't know about a lot of you guys. I'm sure a lot of you guys are very similar to me. I've been hacking telecom since I was 6 years old, right? I just wanted to play. I wanted to know how it worked. I wanted to know all the secrets and dark corners and everything that I could know that were hidden behind the walls of AT&T that had no windows in their buildings, right? I'm sure a lot of you can relate. But when it came to cellular service, that was a whole nother animal, right? That entire infrastructure was completely separate from the standard telecom. Even when SIP got introduced to us in the world and open source got their hands on SIP and residential and business communications, cellular service was a whole nother animal, and that was a whole nother dark world that you couldn't get your hands into. And believe me, I was extremely excited when the 2600 Hertz team was able to make quite a breakthrough, and that they were able to team up with Sprint T-Mobile and build what costs a significant amount of money and man hours and time and engineering to create essentially a SIP gateway at the most abstract level. So not only could we now take a switch like Kazoo or FreeSwitch or whatever switch that met your fancy and connect to it via SIP like you would any other upstream carrier. It's pretty revolutionary to me. They provided us access to the mobile network. I could literally take calls straight off of the tower directly to my switch and manipulate it in any way I saw fit, just like any other SIP endpoint. Which is pretty novel idea. It was unheard of at the time that it was brought to my attention, and I dove right in, needless to say. So without any further ado, I want to show you guys just some quick snippets to really get a great understanding of how simple this really is. Just like you would any. So right here I have I'm not sure if you can read most of that, but you can take my word for it as to what it says. Right here you have essentially just a basic vanilla free switch straight out of the box, right? And you know, just like any integration or interop with a carrier, we'd create a let's see. Nah, no, nothing dangerous here. I just want to demonstrate. So basic XML file, right? Giving you a gateway to this carrier. In this case, it wouldn't be a carrier like a SIP gateway for landlines or to the PSTN. It would be a SIP gateway to the Tower of Power is what they call it, essentially giving you access to the Sprint T-Mobile cellular network directly off of the tower. So what happens is when you do things like dial 911 on a cell phone, those calls get directly routed through Sprint T-Mobile to whatever emergency services, things of that nature. But anytime you dial more than 4 digits or more, the Sprint knows we're just going to pass that to your switch. In this case, the free switch that's been connected to the gateway. So here you see just a simple gateway, right? And obviously, there's ACLs involved. You don't register. It just passes the traffic back and forth, right? And then we're going to take the same cell phone that we provisioned yesterday with Patrick on stage, and that would simply be an endpoint. It would be provisioned through the Sprint network for a provisioned device, and that endpoint would be just like any other SIP phone, and whether it be a Polycom or a Yealink or whatever, that mobile device would just be another extension. So just like you would any other directory extension, you can go in there, and we've got the default directory, and so I'm going to show you how we've got the 2600 hertz mobile, just like any other endpoint. Nothing revolutionary or fancy there. FreeSwitch doesn't know the difference. At the end of the day, it's still SIP traffic. It's just you're able to get that directly off the tower through the native cell phone carrier, through the native dialer on the device. So even if I was on a Polycom, if I wanted to take an iPhone and I wanted to put in a feature code directly into the iPhone's dialer, I could do that and then do things like move the call directly off the Polycom to the cell phone service, or transfer calls, or any number of things that you would be expected to do off of an endpoint device that was SIP compatible. Simple as that. So without any further ado, I'm just going to bring up the command CLI so you can see that we're not just smoke and mirrors. Oops, helps if it was started. Let's see. I can't spell today. Oh, helps if I put the log. There we go. Okay. So without any further ado, like I said, to save some time, the same phone that was already provisioned yesterday is still provisioned, and it's connected to this free switch box. And Miriam's going to demonstrate by dialing the free switch IVR directly off of the iPhone native dialer.
5,000.
And you can see the SIP traffic.
Oh.
There's the cellular call hitting the free switch box directly off of the tower. Nobody in the middle, nobody to impede upon any dreams or creativity that you may have about how you would route that traffic. So that's that abstract compatibility and that abstract connectivity allows you to manipulate the SIP traffic in any way you see fit for whatever solution that you're looking to provide. And voila, there it is for you. Ta-da.
I think we're running short on time, but if you guys have any questions for us, definitely grab us. Oh,
I'm sorry? The same thing can apply. So there's options to be able to enable that and connect SMS via the cell phone service, but that would go directly through Sprint at this time. You wouldn't be able to get that traffic and pass it to Sprint at this time. It is in discussions. Who knows what the future holds? Right. So, I mean, just to give you a heads up, I mean, it's not just about cell phone mobile devices as far as cell phones. You can use hotspots. You can use the actual SIM cards, and you can become your own mobile carrier providing hotspot, not only cell phone service, but for IoT devices, things of that nature. Another great quality about this is international calls, right? If you dial an international call straight off the native cell carrier, you're going to pay through the nose. In this case, it's just another SIP call. So if you wanted to take that call and pass it from the cell phone and pass it through one of your SIP carriers, which is significantly cheaper than cellular to cellular, you can do that as well. Yes, you have a question, please.
Yeah, so that's really cool. On outbound, is there anything on inbound?
Same principle. Same principle.
If an inbound call to a mobile number gets routed to the free switch box,
Correct.
is it possible to send it back into the mobile phone network so that it ends up on the mobile terminal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, it's like any other form of SIF traffic. You receive an inbound call, you'll receive an invite from the tower of power, so to speak, and you can manipulate the call in any way you see fit. If you want to reroute it back out on the mobile network, you're more than welcome. If you want to reroute it back on a standard SIP carrier, you can as well.
The inbound number is configured to send calls to your free switch box, and you send the call back to the mobile network. It's not going to send the call back to your free switch box, and you end up in a loop. So
Well,
prefix or some way of saying, I want this call to be treated. Or
right, if you've already got control of the call within your free switch instance, then you can manipulate the call any way you want. You don't necessarily have to loop it back outside the mobile network unless you wanted to. So you're more than welcome to do anything you want with the traffic at that point. Bridge it, transfer it, whatever you prefer. It's all up to you. Yes, please.
to use this service, do I need to subscribe to 2600 or I need to subscribe to Sprint?
Great question. So Sprint, 2600 hertz has done all the hard legwork with the legal and the interop and the nonsense and all the stuff that would take years to get done. So all you have to do is contact 2600 hertz. You can do so at sales@2600hertz.com, or you can join us on our community forums at forums.2600hertz.com and ask away. And they've done all the red tape for you. You can just start wholesaling directly through 2600 hertz.
So do you look like an MVNO to Sprint? That's correct.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Everything's under wholesale, so you pay for data for management. That's it. And then you guys can bundle it however you want.
Right. And like Miriam demonstrated, you can do this through Kazoo and have all the fancy billing and the user interfaces and things like that, or you can just do it directly to your free switch instance and you can handle all of that yourself as well. So you get the best of both worlds. It's whatever's best for you. Gentleman over there? Yes? Yes. No, you. Sorry.
So if you compare this to a regular VoIP application
Mm-hmm.
that you develop and you put on any mobile device or any Android or iOS device.
Mm-hmm.
So the advantage of your approach is a native dialer, but an application can implement a different dialer, right? So plus with an application you are not tied to Sprint, you can deploy internationally or anywhere really, right? So compared to that, what's the advantage of your approach?
That's a great question. It's a significant advantage. Right now, one of the problems we have with over the top is the fact that SIP service isn't necessarily as reliable as cellular service, right? So if I go to make a voice call, it might work great in Wi-Fi, but if I go out in the street, it's hit or miss with the data, right? And we all know how critical real-time traffic is when you're running out over data that's hit or miss. In this case, you're routing over the cellular carriers, prioritized voice network. So you can provide better quality assurance and better quality control for the customer, assuming that they're probably going to be business users, and we all know they don't tolerate much in the way of fault, right? So that was the end goal for that.
Do you have any data on the hit or miss of using data internet connection?
Nah, not especially. I mean, I think that's pretty pretty widely known. I mean, we all play with different soft phones on cellular, and it works great in Wi-Fi, but then you get out and then you start having problems. Sure. I think it's everyone's pain point, which was one of the reasons why we really wanted, or 2600 hertz really wanted to design a way to be able to connect to the cellular carrier and get the best of both worlds, right? That priority, that dedicated connection, but be able to manipulate it, not like an MVNO where they just go and you have to play by their rules, but this allows you to use your rules, right?
All right, big round of applause for 2600 hertz. It's always great having them here.